Star Wars, The Mandalorian Season 3. We told you a few weeks ago that according to Samba TV, the ratings for Disney's preeminent show, the show that launched Disney Plus for the Walt Disney Company, had utterly collapsed following the 2+ year hiatus from Season 2. And now, the granddaddy of them all, Nielsen, has seemingly confirmed just how bad things have gotten for the Walt Disney Company and for Star Wars. Wall Street is taking notice. We have another video on that coming later today. Stay tuned for that. This is only going to make things worse. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see all of you out there once again. And if you were like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment, turn that little red subscribe button to gray, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. We are talking Star Wars, Disney, Lucasfilm, and The Mandalorian Season 3, which is not doing very well at all for the Walt Disney Company at this point. This was the golden goose, as I've said many times. Talked about this with my friends over on the Best Star Wars channel on YouTube. That's at Echo-based network. If you're not subbed to them, make sure you check them out. I try to have conversations with Coach and Nick as often as I possibly can. And this has always been something since the very beginning that I've been on YouTube. We loved The Mandalorian together. But this new season is just not going the way that Disney had counted on. They really needed a big boost for Disney Plus, especially with the launch of their recent advertising-based tier. And I promise you, these new numbers from Samba TV a few weeks ago, and now Nielsen basically confirming this, is very bad news for the House of Mouse. Let's get right into it. Now, many of you may remember us discussing this article from THE just about 2 weeks ago, with the headline being quite deceptive. The Mandalorian gives Disney Plus a win and staves off a Netflix sweep. Considering the fact that Netflix eats Disney's lunch each and every week in the Nielsen ratings and the Samba ratings, not quite the best headline to go out there and call it your best foot forward. But of course, with most types of shilling, we actually get to the news item buried deeper in the article rather than the headline itself. From the the long-awaited new season's first episode of The Mandalorian was less of a standout measured against other recent Disney Plus releases. A gap of more than 2 years after the second season finale may have allowed some Star Wars fatigue to settle in. The episode outpaced premieres of Star Wars spin-off Andor by nearly 50% in viewership. And as a brief reminder, Andor has been by far and away the ultimate low point of Star Wars on Disney Plus in terms of viewership. But it still fell short of Loki and Obi-Wan Kenobi's audience by double digits. Repeat, The Mandalorian Season 3 premiere fell short of Loki and Obi-Wan Kenobi's audience by double digits, trailing those launches by 35% and 28% respectively. Meanwhile, The Mandalorian spin-off series Book of Boba Fett barely edged out Mando's Season 3 premiere by 2%. Yes, as a reminder to folks, you heard me correctly and you read that correctly from the Samba TV measured a greater audience for the premiere of The Book of Boba Fett compared to Mando Season 3, the golden goose of Disney Plus, which was 30% behind Loki and Obi-Wan, which were largely panned over by audiences. This is terrible news for the Walt Disney Company and terrible news for Disney Plus. Wall Street has got to catch up to facts, and we have been, quite frankly, ahead of Wall Street on our analytics here of Walt Disney's woes for over a year. And we're going to keep being so, because that's what we do. And now, the granddaddy of them all, Nielsen, has come in to confirm what Samba TV has found. Fresh off the presses as of 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, March 30th, 2023, Nielsen dropped the hammer. Number 5 on that week, The Mandalorian showed back up on the charts with 823 million minutes watched. It was bested by NCIS. It was bested by The Last of Us, which, as I remind folks, The Last of Us numbers aren't even in their totality on the streaming charts, as many, many millions of viewers won't even show up and be measured on this Nielsen streaming chart because they watch The Last of Us through HBO's traditional linear broadcast delivery via their cable or satellite TV provider. And then, of course, 2 series from Netflix, The Murdaugh Murders and The Outer Banks. Now, some of you are looking at those numbers and think, great, The Mandalorian racked up nearly 825 million minutes of watch time with a 35 to 40 minute runtime of the first episode. Maybe not a bad thing when you actually divvy out those numbers. That's maybe over 20 million different viewers in the U.S. households. The problem, of course, with that is that we're 16 episodes preceding that. That is a 17-episode cumulative for the week. That doesn't just measure the latest episode. And as is the case with second or third or fourth season premieres, just as it was with Stranger Things, for example, just in the last 12 months with Netflix, there is a tremendous amount of binge watching that comes into play leading into the premiere. That means that a rather significant amount of those 823 million watch minutes accumulated by Nielsen during that week for the Disney Plus show were probably made rewatching seasons 1 and largely season 2 to refresh after a 2-year and 4-month hiatus from the previous season's premiere in October of 2020. By the way, speaking of October 2020, let's go back to an article from THR, because in this article by this week, Nielsen was covering the late October premiere of Mando Season 2. And what did they have to say? The debut of The Mandalorian second season on Disney Plus pushed the show into Nielsen's streaming top 10 for the week of October 26th. The Queen's Gambit, meanwhile, jumped up to the number 1 spot on behalf of Netflix. The Star Wars series placed 3rd in the week in the Nielsen metric. The new season just slid into 5th by an inch, which Nielsen says viewers watched 1.03 billion minutes of the show, including its first season, during the week. The second season premiered on October 30th, and episodes are being released weekly. So, of course, THR righteously caveated their information there, making people understand that this came out on a Friday. But wait, Nielsen measures from Monday at midnight to the next Sunday at 11:59 p.m. If The Mandalorian Season 2 premiered on a Friday, that means it had a full 48 hours less than the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian just a few weeks ago. Well, that makes the Nielsen numbers even worse. Going back to the chart, look again. The Mandalorian with 823 million minutes watched. Let's take into account some reality here. Not only is that nearly 200 million minutes watched fewer than there were in October of 2020, those 200 million minutes came with 8 episodes more than the previous season had running into its premiere week. That means a lot more watch time available for those people going back and binging seasons 1 and 2 to drive those numbers up. Not only that, there were 2 days more this time than last time for those numbers to accumulate on the latest episode. And the worst part of all, when The Mandalorian Season 2 debuted in October of 2020, there were over 10 million fewer subscribers to Disney Plus in North America. No matter how you want to slice this, this is terrible for Walt Disney. This is terrible for Lucasfilm, and this is terrible for Star Wars and The Mandalorian. This is an audience that has shrunk precipitously since its second season. And for the life of me, I just can't figure out why. Disney has been faced with a multitude of options for Star Wars over the years, and it seems like every time, almost to 100% certainty at this point, they have chosen the wrong path. They had something really good that they set up at the end of Season 2. And then, of course, came the Gina Carano situation. And then, of course, came the Book of Boba Fett, where they basically undid all of the goodwill that they had built in the story arc by the end of Season 2, canceling out what happened at that point with Luke Skywalker's triumphant return and turning it into just a gag reel. Disney has continued to offer low-rent Star Wars, knock-off Star Wars, and Wall Street is taking notice. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll cover this in another video later today. But I want people to really understand what's going on here. Headlines, especially in the Hollywood trades, are often lies and cover for reality. We bust through that here on Valiant Renegade because we always put the entertainment industry in Hollywood through the business and financial lens of reality. And we're not going to stop doing that anytime soon. Star Wars has been one of the biggest purveyors of BS for the last several years. And of course, that includes Disney as a company at large. And I don't see anything changing, at least not anytime soon. I hope they do. But reality at this point is that Disney Plus has far more subscribers now, nearly 30 to 40% more than they did when Mando Season 2 premiered. They have had several Star Wars shows since then. Mandalorian Season 3 had the advantage of having 2 seasons behind it as opposed to 1 when the second season premiered. And they still came in behind the 8 ball. They still lost nearly 20% of its viewership in terms of watch minutes on the Nielsen charts. That is almost unfathomable for a show that was once thought to be the golden goose of Disney Plus, but quite clearly no longer is. And of course, the big thing to consider in all this is that The Mandalorian Season 3 was supposed to help catapult the Disney Plus advertising-based tier. Obviously, this did not go the way that Disney had hoped, because unlike their competitors out there in the streaming space with Netflix, HBO Max, and Amazon Prime, who all almost immediately came out and lauded the premieres of things like Stranger Things, Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon, Disney's response has been crickets on The Mandalorian, and now we know why. The simple fact of the matter is the Walt Disney Company is not innovating anymore in storytelling. They're simply coasting. And that should be a big warning sign. How long can the Walt Disney Company continue to peddle out low-rent Star Wars after a $4 billion initial investment and at least another $4 billion in subsequent investments in this IP since then? They're still looking to find a profit on this thing. I don't know if they ever will. Take care.